More all-star returns are in. The Phoenix Suns creeping a little closer to maybe having a starter in the game, maybe having two guys, maybe three, maybe four. We'll talk about all of it. Aaron Edwards is here to close out the week. Coming right up on Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a contributor at Suns.com, where I have a new piece up on all things All-Star for Chris Paul and at Dime Magazine. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen every single morning, for helping us grow the YouTube channel. Slowly but surely, we're creeping toward 1,000. No more actually applications or appearances here for the YouTube giveaway for the towel, but we are really already close to getting to this Oubre thing. So I will announce the winner of that towel giveaway on Monday. Thanks for everybody for helping out there. And thank you to everybody listening across your favorite podcast platforms as well. It is All-Star Day. It's a Friday show. We're going to take things a little casual today and get our way through these All-Star returns. Aaron Edwards is here. He is a writer at All Caps NBA with Jason Concepcion. We have to start here, Aaron, I feel like, because a crime against humanity was committed when these returns came in. Andrew Wiggins is currently in the third front court spot, and that would mean that he starts the game, or that he is one of the 10 guys who gets put into the draft, and then the captains are all that, but he would be in that mix. Is this something we're okay with being alive for in 2022? How are you taking the news of this development, sir?
It's really wild, ain't it? I remember people were considering it a couple. It could happen, but it's not going to happen, kind of things. Yeah. And now we're living in it, and I'm just like, what the hell are we doing? Like, it's just one of those shocking. Like, I feel like it's along the, and I know I'm big a homer, but if Wiggins is an all-star, so is like JaVale McGee. Like, that's like my thought process for the whole thing.
Well, what's funny, and like we're going to get to this as we talk through this stuff, is he's the third best player on, a team that's basically neck and neck for the best team in the NBA. But I'm looking up and down this list. I don't see a third Sun anywhere to be found. And the fact that there's also just like, and look, I mean, part of it is, if other fan bases wanted their guys in here, then everyone had the ability to go out and do that, right? The Warriors just happen to have this like mafia behind them because their city's really big and have this like international appeal. I'm sure all of that is working in his favor, but it's like, it's just funny to me to look back at guys who have not gotten in or needed like injuries to happen for them to get in. And then to fast forward all the way to Andrew Wiggins is starting the game. Like, honestly, why is Draymond not, like, why are Warriors fans voting for Wiggins over Draymond? That's probably the craziest part of this whole thing.
Yeah. I think like it's kind of like a pity thing, because like he played bad for so many years that now that he is playing pretty well, like they think it's an all-star level because he's playing better than he's played before. So it's like he kind of just like did bad grades, and once he got to see everybody's like, he got to see, like, let's just get him. And they've had 1 billion home or TV games, so I think that's helped. Even though like he hasn't done like much in those TV games, he fits the Warrior system now. Finally, like he's better than Kelly Oubre was, and I think like that's pretty much what.
Yeah, no, I think. Yeah. No, I think. I mean, obviously, like the real reason more than anything else is Paul George is hurt, Anthony Davis is hurt. I guess people there's not enough Timberwolves fans to get Karl Anthony Towns into the game. Rudy Gobert is old news. Nobody's really excited to watch him. He cried the last time that it didn't work out for him, so people probably are not in a hurry to see that all happen again. But What do you think in
That is
general? Like,
that is the other thing. Like
go ahead.
the wings that usually make it are hurt. Like it would be Paul George and Kawhi probably, like more than likely. So that's two spots that are opened up. So I mean, I didn't think it was Paul George, Kawhi, and then Andrew Wiggins right below that. But like, I guess All-Star voting wise, like they're considering Andrew Wiggins the third best small forward in the Western Conference right now. Which is a weird sentence to even say right now.
It makes no sense. None of it makes any sense. Obviously, LeBron is at the top. Jokic is in second in the front court. So they're like head and shoulders above everybody else. And then you have Curry right up there in the West for guards. He's not going to be caught. He's like 4 times as much as the next guy, which is Ja Morant. It's not looking good for Booker or Paul to be in that starting group. Fans, unfortunately, Kendall Jenner's tweets and all the rest, it didn't get it done. What's crazy to me, though, is these international guys always get boosted. Like, you remember like Yao Ming would always
Zaza.
get in. Zaza had that one year. Jeremy Lin was always like, these fans who have maybe 1 or 2 players from their country to root for. Like, it makes all the sense in the world that it happens that way. What the hell is going on with Luka? He has 1.4 million votes. He's behind Ja, who plays in like the 50th biggest city in the country. What is going on there? Are people just turning? They're all tired of Luka. It's over for him. What's going on there?
My whole thing is like maybe he went back home this summer when he was eating all that food and he was just an asshole the entire time. Like he just went back home and like now everybody hates him. He just needs to stay in America for a summer and let it die down.
Didn't Jokic like give a bunch of people, or there was a spread of COVID as a result of a party that he kind of hosted? I feel like that's pretty. He didn't suffer from it. He got 4 million votes out of his country. What Luka, I feel like can't catch a break here.
That depends on how good the party was, man. So that's like fair. maybe he threw a heater.
It was worth COVID.
Yeah, maybe he threw a heater and they weren't that mad at him. Like I feel that's like fair. maybe Luka's parties suck, and that's why he's not getting any votes.
What would a Luka Doncic party involve? I feel like it's like at least a dozen bowls of chips. You have like a whole spread at the drink counter, but like very light on the liquor, very heavy on like the Dr. Pepper. And like what else is going on at a Luka Doncic party?
I think it's like whatever Slovenian trap music is. Like I think it's a lot of that. I think if he gets Boban to come, I think it's a cool party. But if Boban doesn't come, I think
if
it's
he brings the horses, then things start to get pretty fun. If there's like farm animals involved and like this 7'3" guy, and maybe Keanu gets involved as a result of Boban. Yeah, he has to be bringing other people in. I've never looked at Luka Doncic and had the idea like that guy seems like a ton of fun to spend a night with by any means. He seems pretty pissed off and red almost 24/7. So maybe we're onto something. Maybe he
people in Slovenia have just seen him play this season. Like that could also be it.
Yeah. Maybe they wanted that gold medal and they're just resentful.
Yeah.
Maybe they felt like he didn't do enough in the Olympics, although he carried that team. So I don't know if that's fair, but look, he is that was bigger surprise to me than I think even Wiggins, because I just felt like Steph and Luka were kind of a lock in the guard spots. It felt like those guys are there. We'll see what happens with that third front court spot. And, at this point, like Suns fans are probably going to be rooting for Book and Chris to be in the coach's selection, the media selection, whatever it might be. But let's turn the page. Let's go over to that. Let's talk about the seasons that Booker and Paul have had so far, what it would mean for Booker to maybe finally get a rightful All-Star appearance in his third attempt, even though he technically has already been there twice. He will actually get it this time, I think. So let's go through the Suns players' odds here of finally breaking through. First, though, not just All-Star voting here in 2022. We have plenty of stuff on the sports calendar. The NFL, the college football playoffs just wrapped up. You have college basketball tournaments not too far into the future. And BetOnline.ag would like to wish all of our listeners a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action here in the new year. They also have a new updated desktop site and mobile app, BetOnline.ag. Go there, Make an account. When you do, use the promo code LOCKEDON when you make your first deposit to get a 50% welcome bonus. That's promo code LOCKEDON when you make your first deposit to get a 50% welcome bonus straight to your account. From the football playoffs, maybe you're feeling like you got to put some money on Kyler Murray in his first ever playoff game. Maybe you're looking ahead to the Australian Open and taking advantage of Novak not being there. Whatever it might be, head to BetOnline. They are your one-stop shop for all sports betting action throughout 2022. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so as I said, Aaron, it's not looking good for Devin Booker or Chris Paul in the starting lineup. Booker is at about 650,000 votes, according to this, which is less than half of what John Morant has. Chris Paul even further behind than that, sitting in 7th, sitting behind Russell Westbrook, which is really a crime, but is just more LA. It's just more LA, whatever you want to call it. What do you think, though? Are both of these guys getting in? It feels like we're headed that way, even if fans' tweets didn't get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, it feels wrong. Like every time Chris Paul not getting in just feels wrong. Like I know Devin Booker's probably going to get in, but I just really think like we had the fun part of our season too early, I think. So like people just forgot it immediately. Like I think like that took like a lot of fire away from All-Star voting. Was people don't really. I think Memphis's 10-game winning streak is getting more publicity than our like 20-game win streak.
Yes.
Like it seems like nobody really cares about how the season started anymore. So like just
we also had the most like James Jones, Monty Williams win streak ever, though. Like just kind of putting it together with not spare parts. That's obviously disrespectful, but like you at the beginning of that, you had Frank Kaminsky with a career high in points. You have JaVale McGee running around the floor. You have injuries and weird, like it just didn't like this Memphis thing is like the all hail John Morant moment, right? It's kind of like this guy is going to get MVP votes. Holy crap. He's the new, superstar. He should have been taken first over Zion. Like there's all these new things. Whereas, I think you're right. Like you look at Chris Paul, it's boring to people, right? Like he's just been so like consistently amazing. But what's crazy, so I worked on this story for the Suns website about his first playoff appearance, just to kind of look back, and I got to talk to Bonzi Wells and Bobby Jackson, which is just
nice.
weird and cool in its own way, because it's like two dudes I straight up had not thought about in years. But it's weird to look back. Did you realize that Chris Paul didn't make the All-Star game in either one of those Houston seasons? Like he's only made 11 All-Star teams, despite being so great for so long.
Really, it feels like he's always there. So I'm really shocked that he didn't make it for the Houston year. Like, I figured it would just be him and Steph because they have to be in top 3 in rankings in the Western Conference. So them not making it is making it seem like one of the situations here too. Then,
I think it probably. I don't have the teams pulled up. It probably was like one of those things where you split the vote because he was on the team with Harden. So I'm sure that was part of it. And then health, like he only played 58 games both of those seasons. So I'm sure that didn't do him any favors. But like, I mean, it must just be the health because the previous season was at 61 games. And then early on in New Orleans, the team just wasn't good enough and he was in a small market and whatnot. But it's just kind of crazy to look back and think about it that way, where it's like, LeBron and these guys, they just are Kobe. They're just like a shoe-in every single year. And Chris hasn't gotten the benefit of the doubt. But I think for narrative alone, I think just what he means to this team and the fact that they're right there at the top again, like I have a hard time believing that they wouldn't give the Suns at least 2. We can talk about the 3rd and 4th guys later on, but as it relates to Book, does it matter to you? Like, do the other 2 before this feel like not as real because they were injury replacements, or do you feel like this is his 3rd All-Star appearance and none of that matters?
No, I don't think it matters, but I do think he should finally get voted in. Last year was probably more ridiculous than the other ones. Like, he was on a bad team and getting a lot of points, so I could see why people were against it. Like, he was on a great team last year, and he was playing super well, and they were winning, and he still didn't get in. And even, like, Dame getting hurt almost didn't change that. Like, for some reason, the league just didn't see him. And I think, like, now we're more seen, but he got hurt, and he got the team got COVID, and it just seems like he's fighting uphill this time too for different reasons. I think our team is just too methodical, and it's just nobody's like dropping 40 and just like these amazing wins. Like we're just winning. Like it's just like pretty methodical wins. It's like on some Spurs stuff right now, and nobody thought they were exciting. Like people were getting Tim Duncan in an All-Star game was pulling teeth, and he was one of the greatest players of all time. So I think just methodical and just like boring wins just don't translate to people voting for All-Stars.
Yeah, I think in the West, so LeBron, Jokic, Wiggins, Curry, Morant. That looks like it's going to be the starting lineup. I feel like beyond that, Chris and Donovan Mitchell are probably locks. I think Luka is probably a lock. So that's 7-8 guys already. And that doesn't even include some of the players who are like right on the cusp with injuries like Paul George and other guys. But looking through like the rest of this list, it's like Anthony Davis. Yeah, he's up here on this list, but he's not getting in. Carmelo Anthony is a complete joke. That's not happening. Rudy Gobert is probably going to get in because the Jazz, I think, will have two guys.
Even though nobody wanted them last year, like that was really bad during the draft.
I want them to do it again. I want him to do that again and make it an annual tradition. If he's going to cry and be ridiculous, then is Rudy Gobert the most hated guy in the NBA? I mean, aside from like the actual villains or like straight, like Patrick Beverley might be up there, but like
I don't think it's like
has to be.
I don't think it's hate with Rudy Gobert. I just think he's so lame that like he makes it hard not to make fun of him. And I think if he was just quiet and like we stopped making fun of Dwight Howard sooner or later. And I think if he just was quiet and stopped being lame, because Dwight Howard was also lame and he made us make fun of him. And I think once he finally matures and get into that area where he's like, all right, like some of this is on me, then we'll stop making fun of him so much.
It seems like he wants to be like a bigger star than he is. I wonder. I don't know. I wonder if it's because like these international types of players, like they probably, in their like friend groups or whatever, are like the biggest thing on the planet. And then they get to the NBA and it's like, okay, you're like the fourth best center. Like, settle down a little bit here.
Yeah, I think Gobert just wants it to. Yeah, I think Gobert just wants it to be 1998, and that's like his thing is he wants centers to be like treated like that. But guards that do dope stuff is just what the NBA is now. That's what people like more, and bigs aren't really treated unless they do point guard stuff. That's why we like Jokic, because he throws dimes and he doesn't look like he should.
And we like Joel Embiid because he can pull up from three and transition like a freak. Yeah, it's definitely a throwback player, but he's historically gotten in. I think he's been an all-star like 3 or 4 straight seasons at this point. Gobert has, so he'll be in there. But point being, Book and Chris should both, I think, get in without much of a problem. On the topic of Booker, though, before we transition to the other guys, and you can tell me if you think Bridges or Ayton really have much of a shot here. Where do you land on Booker with the camera? If you remember from that first All-Star season, and I think he brought it. He brought it to
dunk contest
too. So corny or genuine? How do you feel?
No, I like it. Like, and it's like the retro camera, right? Yeah, I like the
flip, like this type of
Yeah, it looked cool during the WNBA finals too. I just think it's like a cool look.
It's cool because he's the only one who actually does it.
Yeah, and he has like the old school cars, and he like does that, so it just fits like his old school vibe of like the camera, and just Book just seems like an old soul, so it kind of fits him. If like some of these younger dudes did it, I think it would be weird.
That's fair. I agree. I think it's one of those things that like in hindsight, it's like you do it once.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if he brought it out at every All-Star game, it's kind of like act like you've been here before. Like you're a 3-time All-Star, you're trying to win an NBA title. Like, it's not, you're not a little kid. You're not Spider-Man in what was the Cold War that he was in, the first one that he was ever in, where he brought the camera. Like it's not that. You gotta probably man it up a little bit. But no, I think Booker and Paul will both be there. Let's talk about the other two guys though. They've been really pushing this on the broadcast. I know obviously the Suns are tweeting it. They really want to make it like 2015 Hawks type of situation, but I'm not so sure. So we'll break that down and have some fun with that here in a quick second. First though, if you are already, Aaron and I were just talking about before we hit record that January flies by. It can be hard to get ready for the new year. maybe you're struggling with your resolutions already. I saw a bunch of articles that people are not signing up for gyms as much. I think we're all just tired of everything. Built Bar, though, is there to help you get it done. Maybe the exercise is not agreeing with you, but you can at least do yourself the favor of eating right. Built Bar makes it easier to stick to those resolutions because they are actually good tasting. They actually are delicious. They're not like most protein bars or other healthy food that you just choke it down because you know you have to, or you feel like you owe it to yourself maybe in the new year, or just because you've been eating like a fat person for a little while. Built Bar saves that for you by being delicious. Again, less than 150 calories, less than 5 grams of sugar, 15 to 20 grams of protein packed into every single one. I know that I struggle with this stuff. It's not always easy to find the right thing to eat. It's not always easy to stay committed. The bad habits that I was just talking about, I was not throwing shade at anybody. That's me too. But Built Bar is delicious. And I love the coconut almond. I love the cherry. They have something for everybody, whether you're a real sweet person or you like something a little bit lighter. Just peruse. Built.com, promo code LOCK15. Check it out. 15% off of your next order. Again, promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right. Mikal Bridges, Deandre Ayton. The Suns clearly are pushing. You see the tweets. You hear the references on the broadcast. I just don't buy it. And I think, Aaron, it's a byproduct of exactly what you were saying that already I think Booker and Paul suffer from, which is the team is so deep. They're so methodical. They're so frankly, like you were saying about the Spurs, like kind of boring at times. If you're not like super diehard, passionate Suns fan, they can get lost in the shuffle, I think. And I think individual players get lost in that shuffle too. Like, to really stand out, you have to be so good on this team. There was a stretch where Ayton was doing that. There was a stretch where Bridges was doing that, but I just don't think they put it together over the course of the whole entire season to be above some of these other stars in the NBA.
Yeah, the Bridges defense is good, and there are if you're watching deep and looking closely, you'll see just insane defensive possessions from Bridges, but I just don't think that gets you in the All-Star game anymore. Like Tony Allen stuff just doesn't really push the needle All-Star wise for people. Like Draymond, he'll guard a point guard and then go down low and guard a center and then get the rebound and run the break. That is just cool. He's just really great on defense. And I think
Draymond doesn't even always get in.
Yeah. So I just think if you're going to be a defensive specialist and get in, you have to pretty much be one of those people that do everything. And Bridges doesn't really shoot as much. He's still not as aggressive as we want him to be sometimes. I feel like Cam Johnson kind of took that from him this summer. And I just don't think he's good. And we're just so methodical that he makes insanely great defensive plays, but I just don't think that really gets you into the All-Star game.
Yeah, I think you're right. Looking back, Andre Iguodala is another example of that team, but that was his last year in Philly when he was honestly a lot of their offense in addition to being his usual self on defense. But even the year that he's the defensive player of the year, that one season he was with the Nuggets, he still doesn't even make the All-Star team. So those types of guys, they do not get that type of love. I think you're right. Bridges will have to just be more of an offensive factor if he's ever going to get in. Deandre Ayton, I think the injury and then COVID and his inconsistency, he hasn't been great in the 2 games since he got back. I don't think that you notice him enough in games. As much as you were saying, the Bridges defensive stuff can get lost in the shuffle or kind of fly under the radar, I think Ayton, his whole package gets that way sometimes.
Yeah, I think like I said, we peaked early during the win streak. He was guarding Steph out at the 3-point line. He was guarding a bunch of point guards out at the 3-point line. He was amazing off the pick and roll. He was playing like an all-star. I just think COVID kind of just messed it all up, and he's just not as aggressive on defense anymore. And I just think maybe he just needs to get his legs back under him. But the COVID thing and the getting hurt stuff and the team just kind of having to play with so many 10-day guys, I think it just threw the vibe off a little. So I just think it's going to be really hard for him to get in. But if the streak happened these last 2 months instead of the first 2 months, then he's in.
That was what we talked about. I think one of the first times I brought you on was like, what does the rest of the season even mean?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? Like, we already kind of saw everything we need to see here. Like, pack it up and get ready for the playoffs. But awards in general are going to be so weird this year with, like most seasons, guys would get dinged if they missed time because it's like, well, at the end of the day, you just weren't as like valuable to your team because you weren't
Yeah.
out there. But how are you going to say that about anybody this season? Like, we're already kind of seeing it with All-Star. It's going to be even weirder with awards because nobody's going to crack 80 games this season. People might not even crack 70 if they have like Ayton, if they have an injury and COVID. It's like you're already 5-7 games deep before you even look up.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of eye test stuff for awards. That's why Ja as an MVP is like he has so many memorable plays and games this year that he's already just gonna be like just tattooed in the memory of voters. So I just think like depending like we still got a lot of season left, but like you gotta really like show yourself in these limited games that you're probably gonna end up playing to get award discussion.
Yeah. It sounds like you've come around because I think it was last week, I said to you, the Grizzlies scare me more than the Jazz. I still think
they can go cold. And they played the Lakers like 3 times in like the last 2 weeks. So yeah. I think it's a lot of that too. That yes.
It does you favors to beat the Lakers, yes.
Yes. And just to play them in general, it does you favors. So I just think like once he starts playing, I mean, they beat the Warriors pretty well too. And I just think like, but I feel like the Warriors are in the same position. We are like started off hot and now just trying to get to the playoffs in one piece since they kind of just know they're better than so many teams. And I just think like with the Suns and the Warriors, it's just like a pace kind of thing, not get to the playoffs thing. And they can go cold like whenever the Memphis can. So I think they kind of have to stay going this fast. So they're going to look good.
They don't have like a second guy for offense, So you could easily see them going through a stretch where it's like, oh, they've lost like 7 of 10 or something. Like I think that they do kind of go up and down, and they're missing Dillon Brooks still, who was a big part of their team last year. But I don't know. That team just feels like this is kind of a year for them where they might take a step. Now, obviously Utah has that proven track record, so I might still be exaggerating a little bit, but I think it's more of a conversation than people realize, which is why I wanted to bring it up. Because if the Suns face them in the playoffs, I don't want people coming at that series like, oh, Suns in 4, this is done.
I think Memphis
is going to be a real series.
Yeah, I think Memphis is going to scare somebody. I think like in a game 1, they'll like shock somebody with like a big win. But I just think like after a team like hunkers down, and because you got to win 7 of them, or you got to win 4 out of 7. And defenses get tighter. And I just think once you realize like what to do with Ja in a 7-game series, they're going to have to go to something else. And I just don't think they have that something else.
Well, let's hope the Suns have something for Ja because they haven't. And that's part of why they scare me. But to your point in general here, like just the teams we're rattling off, the Grizzlies, the Warriors, the Jazz, I think like a lot of people might feel like, hey, like the Suns are the best team in the NBA or close to it. They should have more than 2 All-Stars. And in the past, that's kind of been true. The teams that really surge ahead tend to get rewarded that way. But like you look at the Hawks that one year and some of these outlier examples, and it's like, but the West this season is just that good. And you couple that with like some of these just, superstar talents on top of that might not even be on great teams like Luka, LeBron, Jokic, etc. It just starts to stack up. So I don't think it's necessarily like Ayton will never have a shot at it, or maybe, if Bridges keeps growing, like he won't, or maybe like, who knows, Cam Johnson, like, I don't know, maybe he has a shot at it in the future. It's just like right now, this conference is stacked. But I have one last question for you. And it's not to throw any people under the bus necessarily, but back to the broadcast. I like, any reasonable person, like you and I love watching Mikal Bridges. We love watching DeAndre Ayton when he's out there and playing his best. And even we're reasonable enough to be like, that's not going to happen for them this year. Does Eddie Johnson, like, are they giving him a bonus per game for talking about? Like, are they giving him like $50 cash every time he drops a hint that he is out there making the most beautiful case every single game? Mikal Bridges has to be an all, like, he can't possibly believe this.
I think he actually does. Jason got on me about this at All Caps a couple of days ago, but he's just like, he's the ultimate homer, but not in like an annoying way. Like he doesn't like trash other people's players that kind of way.
No,
But
no, he's
he loves
genuine.
our
Like he's honest, but
yeah, he like loves our players, and he's just a homer. Like he's as big a homer as it gets for Sun stuff. So I really do think he believes it, but he's also just trying to like talked himself into it at the same time.
wait, Jason got on you for being a homer, or was making fun of Eddie Johnson also?
Eddie Johnson, because on NBA TV, like they end up listening to Eddie Johnson. So like pretty much a lot of people know how much of like we were talking about just like the top like just home broadcasts. And I have to admit that yes, like my place is one of the most homer NBA TV broadcasts.
Yeah. Well, look, I think Eddie actually like his analysis of stuff going on in the court is pretty good. Like I think we're lucky in that way. Yes, he's a homer. Obviously, those of us who live here don't care if he's a homer, so it's not going to bother us. But like, I mean, I have never done anything for as long as Eddie Johnson has watched 82 Suns games a year. So at a certain point, it's like he's more of a Sun than like anybody outside of like the freaking like the gorilla or like some concession person who's been like no one has been part of this longer than him. So I get it, but he does push it a little bit. But you might be right. Maybe he's convinced himself that the Suns should actually have 4 of 12 All-Stars this season. I think
in his head, like he still is thinking of the first, like he's still thinking of the streak. Like he's not considering the fall off. Like Bridges went cold for a couple games and wasn't shooting enough and kind of wasn't like didn't know what his part was once people were going down. And I just don't think he's considering that slowdown. I still think he's thinking of the streak when he's talking about these players.
I also think I think a lot of ex-players get into this too, where there's a difference between like an all-star level talent or somebody who has like an all-star ceiling and like actually one of the 12 people who's going to make this year's team. You know what I mean? Like there is just some like, it's like, you know, I don't know, not even to talk about any specific people in politics, but it's like you could look at somebody and be like, yeah, they could be the president. That doesn't mean they're going to get elected next year. It means like, sure, what the hell? Why not? Yeah, I could see it. But that's not like they're going to become the nominee for the presidency. You know what I mean? So I think it's all good. And like, I think in an ideal world, like maybe a fair world, the best teams would have more All-Stars, but like the NBA is what it is. It wants to show some of the, you know, people from other teams, and fans have a say in it, and fans are going to vote for Carmelo Anthony over real All-Stars. But no, this has been fun, man. I don't think the Suns will get 4, but I think they will get 2. We'll keep monitoring the results and the returns as they come in. You can catch Aaron at All Caps NBA, writing, showing up on screen, preaching the gospel of the Phoenix Suns, and he'll be back next week. Have a good weekend, everybody. I will be back on Monday.